Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John today. I'm going to read S3 3248, Extreme Science Job by John Dickens Lizio. Contents. Welcome to this book. Welcome to this book. Do you like adventure? Well, get ready. It's time for some extreme science. Science can take you to the bottom of the ocean. It can lead you up to the trunk of a giant tree or into the mouth of a volcano. You can hunt for the world's deadliest disease, then go to the heart of the jungle looking for their cure. The scientists you're about to meet risk their lives to track down clues to scientific mysteries. So hang on, you're coming along for the ride. Target words. There are some words that will help you understand these science adventures. Awe, fear, and wonder. Descend to go lower down. Predict to try to guess the future. Reader tips. It is how to get the most from this book. Subhead. Subhead is like a title for a section of a chapter. Tells the main idea of a section. Look at the subhead, hot spots on page 7. What will this section be about? Fact, opinion. As you read, try to separate the facts from the opinion. A fact can be proven. An opinion is a feeling or a belief. Chapter 1, The Volcano Climber. Rosalie Robes Gautier can take the heat. Even when it's coming from a volcano. Rosalie Robes Gautier has climbed the volcano for 25 years. So she knows how dangerous they can be, but that doesn't stop her. Once, Rosalie was climbing Mount Etna, a 10,000-foot mountain of rock and lava in Italy. She stood just 100 feet from an erupting crater. She wore a gas mask and a hard hat. For safety, Rosalie couldn't take her eyes off the fountains of red lava that sprayed into the sky. But then something crashed at her feet. It was a lava bomb. This boulder of melted rock got blasted into the sky before falling to the earth. The lava bomb snapped Rosalie back to reality. And one word echoed in her brain. Run! Hot spot. Rosalie is a volcanologist. Volcanologist. A scientist who studies volcanoes. She works with NASA, the U.S. Space Agency. For her job, Rosalie travels to some of the world's hottest spots. How hot? She has climbed the volcanoes where the lava reaches 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. And each time she learns more about these strange and deadly mountains. Most mountains sit on top of solid rock. But volcanoes are different. They form over pools of molten or melted rock. The melted rock simmers just below the Earth's surface. When underground gas and melted rock boil up, watch out. That's when most people run for their lives. There are about 600 active volcanoes in the world. Any of them could erupt at any time. Some are cone-shaped with a hollow center. Others look like craters in flat ground. But whatever their form, volcanoes are like outdoor labs to Rosalie. Rosalie studies lava samples and how volcanoes form. She looks at the effect of volcanic eruptions on our weather. At NASA, Rosalie searches for signs of volcanoes on other planets. Volcanoes also offer a look at what's inside the Earth. Scientists hope to be able to predict when volcanoes will erupt. They could save the lives of people who live in a volcano's shadow. Set on science, volcanology is an unusual career for anyone, but being a scientist of any kind was considered strange when Rosalie was a girl growing up in Brazil. There were few opportunities in that country for girls who liked science, so her mother made her take typing classes so she could become a secretary. But Rosalie's father pushed her to follow her passion for science. He wanted me to be an astronomer so I could name a comet after him. Rosalie jokes. Rosalie's parents sent her to school in England to study science. It was there that she fell in love with volcanoes. Why did Rosalie take typing classes? Rosalie has studied volcanoes for years, but an eruption still fills her with awe. The ground trembles under her. The ear-splitting boom signals that an explosion is near, and then a cloud of black ash covers the sky. Then it's a mighty force of nature, like nothing you have ever seen, Rosalie says. There are rivers of red lava and flying balls of fire. It's the most beautiful of nature's spectacles. That's what happened on Mount Etna. Still, Rosalie hiked to the lip of the volcano. Her boots crunched on crusted lava. It sounded like she was walking on broken glass. Rosalie looked into the volcano's cone and saw a bottomless lake of fire. Then she heard that boom. Some eruptions you know are coming days or weeks or months in advance. She said this one caught us by surprise. Flowing lava is slow. It's easy to move out of its path, but the lava bombs are more dangerous. They exploded around Rosalie. They rained drops of ashes. She ran for her life. She raced down a mountain path. She dove into a car and hit the gas. Through her rearview mirror, she saw Mount Etna overflow with glowing red and orange lava. Wasn't Rosalie's first close call. One kept her away from volcanoes in the future. She says volcanoes offer a dazzling adventure for an experienced climber. If you have to make a quick getaway, park your car facing away from the volcano. She says, I always keep my keys in the ignition and the motor running. The, why do volcanoes erupt? Volcanoes have fascinated and frightened people for centuries. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted in Washington. It killed 51 people. The volcano in Italy called Vesuvius blew in 79 AD. It wiped out the entire city of Pompeii. What causes these fiery shows? Volcanoes are open vents in the Earth's surface. The vents lead deep underground. The Earth is hot inside. It's so hot that some rocks melt. They become a thick liquid called magma. Magma is lighter than the solid rock around it, so it rises. As it nears the surface, bubbles form. The gas bubbles create a lot of pressure. The pressure builds until a violent eruption rips open the earth. Then the pressure can escape. Magma that reaches the surface is called lava. The explosions can be deadly to people, but they may serve an important purpose. Science think volcanoes are the Earth's way of releasing underground heat. Talk about blowing off steam. Chapter 2, Under the Sea. Evan V. Ford has a deep love of the water. It's really deep. He explored the ocean floor. Think, a thunk. That's the sound of the hatch slamming shut on Evan B. Ford's submarine. Evan has heard that dull thud at least a dozen times in his career, but it always fills his stomach with butterflies. There's no going back now. He thinks the next stop is the ocean floor. Evan is an oceanographer. He studies the ocean. Evan specializes in a part of the ocean that few people ever see. He explores the dark mysteries of the ocean floor. There are different kinds of oceanographers. Some stay close to the surface, and some, like me, go way, way down, Evan says. How far down? Evan's submarine can descend 2 miles below the surface. At that depth, Evan is surrounded by pitch black darkness. His sub cruises through underwater canyons the size of cities. And if his sub were to get stuck, no rescue ship or divers could reach him in time. That fact bothers Evan, but still, he's not afraid to get his feet wet. He works for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. He's the first African American scientist to do this type of research. Evan wasn't the first person in his family who was interested in science. His father was a high school science teacher, so Evan grew up with microscopes and chemistry sets in every corner of the house. At night, he would balance his telescope on the hood of his parents' car. From there, he would gaze at stars. I wanted to be an astronaut or a football player, Evan says. The last place I thought I would end up was at the bottom of the ocean. But Evan has spent a great deal of time there. He studies everything in the sea. He researches ocean currents, sea creatures, and underwater rocks and mountains. What he learns about the ocean can help us protect it from pollution. Evan's work also helps unlock the secrets of the Earth's climate. The oceans hold much of the Earth's heat. As water slowly circulates, it moves huge amounts of heat around the planet. Those heat changes trigger harsh weather, like storms and hurricane. Studying changes in the ocean can help us tell when extreme weather will arrive. Albin. Evan does much of his work in a Navy sub called an Albin, just 23 feet long. It's Evan's ride to a different world. It's beautiful down there, Evan says. It's dark and strange, and yeah, a little scary. You never know what you're going to see. As it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, the inside of the Albin is dark. Only an instrument panel lights the gray metal walls. Oceanography is the study of everything in the ocean. The submarine is hot and stuffy, but Evan wears a warm jacket and a cap. As the Albin goes down, the deep water will cool the sub to near freezing. Hundreds of feet down, the water is dark. The Albin has powerful headlights, but Evan can only see 15 feet ahead of him. Outside the Albin, strange creatures come and go out of the range of light. Evan notes giant shrimp, spider crabs, and long fat eels that glow in the dark. He spots fish with eyes they don't see. They don't need to see down there in the darkness. They're buried 2 miles under. Each trip to the ocean floor is an adventure. But one sticks out in Evan's mind. Nearly 20 years ago, he and a pilot took the Albin 2 miles down. Evan saw an interesting rock on a canyon wall. They moved in for a closer look. The pilot made a sub's robot arm reach out. It tugged at the rock. Suddenly the wall crumbled. Dirt and rocks tumbled down, trapping the sub. The propeller spun in the dirt like a car wheel, stuck in the mud, but the sub wouldn't move. The pilot gunned the engine. Evan sweated. He wondered if the Albin would become the deep sea coffin. No rescuers could reach them there. After 10 long, scary minutes, the sub broke free. The pilot snapped Evan on the back. Okay, he laughed nervously. You can breathe now. Down there, you want to have a strong stomach and steady sea leg. Evan says, and oh yeah, a little bit of luck can hurt. Was a frightening event, but Evan has repeated the plunge many times since then. He loved the thrill of diving into a barely unknown part of the planet, and he loved the thrill of coming back up too. Chapter 3. The Lenny of the Rainforest. Like a modern-day Tarzan, the Lenny Ned Carney scrambles up rainforest trees. It's dark and quiet on the floor of the Costa Rican rainforest. Huge trees block most of the sunlight. On the ground, the forest looks almost lifeless. But Nalini Carney has left the ground far behind. She's climbing a 200-foot high tree called the Strangler Fig, gripping a climbing rope. She pulls herself over the branches. Above, she can see the blue of the Central American sky. Suddenly, her head pops through the treetops. It's sunny, loud, and bursting with life. She is surrounded by a green sea of leaves, high above the forest shadows. Brightly colored birds and insects whir in the canopy around her. It's a stirring, beautiful, awesome experience. Nalini says it's like entering another realm. Until a few years ago, no one had ever been here, and no one but monkeys, bugs, and birds. Nalini helped change that. She's an ecologist. That's a scientist who studies living things and their environment. She works at Evergreen State College in Washington, but her research often takes her to the rainforest. There, she puts her mountain climbing skills to good use. She became one of the first people to scale these skyscraping trees. At the top, Nalini does more than just enjoy the view. She takes pictures and collects samples, and she has discovered a new species of plants and animals. Nalini's research tells us about the rainforest ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living things and their environment. Nalini has found plants that have helped scientists develop new medicine, and she hopes her work will help people realize how valuable the rainforest is. Crazy about climbing. Nalini has never been a stranger to treetops. As a child, maples and elms lined the driveway of a Maryland home. She would hurry home from school, grab a snack, say a quick hello to her mom, then she would pick up a book and head for the tree. There she would balance herself on the highest branches. It always felt like my own little world, she says, in school. Nalini studied dance, but the outdoors seemed more exciting than the stage. As an ecologist, she's hiked the woods of the Pacific Northwest. She has explored the tropical forest, but tree canopy presented the tallest challenge. Scientists have guessed that as many as 30 million species of plants and animals live in the treetops, but nobody knew for sure. They couldn't get there to start counting. Then Nalini had a simple idea. Why not climb the trees? A rainforest tree can be as high as a 25-story building. Each branch holds stinging insects, poisonous thorns. Some scientists laughed at Nalini's idea. They called it Tarzan and Jane Stop, she recalls. That Lenny was determined. She traveled to Costa Rica with her own invention. It was a new kind of crossbow. From the ground, the Lenny aimed it into the branches. She shot an arrow into the air. It carried a thin rope over a branch 125 feet up. That's about half the way to the top of the tallest tree. Then she used the thin rope to pull a heavier rope over the tree limb. Then she connected it to a climbing harness. Now Nalini could begin her long climb up the tree. I looked like an inchworm crawling up the side of a mountain, Nalini says. Bees swarmed in her hair. Rock hard, the bullet ends beat her legs, but nothing stopped her. Standing on a high branch, Nalini pulled in her line. She took aim and fired again. Finally, Nalini broke through to the sunlight. She had become one of the few humans ever to reach the rainforest canopy. The leaves seemed to move like waves. She touched the plants that no one on the earth had ever seen before. Hummingbirds landed on her shoulder. A howler monkey watched her from a nearby tree. The sight, the sound, the smells, it overwhelms your senses, she said. Nalini has climbed hundreds of trees since. Each one is different, she says. Years after the climb, she will return to a rainforest. She remembers the trees like old friends. I know their trunks and their leaves and their branches. Nalini says, and they give me everything from oxygen to information. Sometimes I'll be nestled in a branch and I'll feel like the arms of the tree are holding me. It's the nicest place in the world. Wow. Now she climbs them for science. Look at her go. Chapter 4. The Virus Hunters. This husband and wife science team battles killer disease. The small plane touched down on a grassy strip in Sudan, a country in Eastern Africa. Joseph McCormick and several other scientists unloaded the equipment. As soon as it was light enough, the pilot took off. His message was clear: good luck, docs, but I'm not sticking around. Not while a killer disease is on the loose. Team of doctors couldn't blame the pilot. A bumpy jeep ride later, they arrived at the hospital. The building was really just a hut. It had walls made of mud and a roof made of straw. It had no windows at all. Holding kerosene lamp, the doctor visited dozens of patients. The lucky ones had straw mattresses. Others lay on the bare floor. Many were weak and throwing up. Most had fevers. Their foreheads were covered in sweat. Hospital staff was puzzled. What could possibly make these people so sick? The answer doctors found was Ebola. The disease has killed thousands of people in Africa. McCormick now knew what he was up against, a killer virus, and he settled in to see if the virus could be fought with medicine. Virus hunting. Joseph McCormick is a virologist from the University of Texas. He teams up with his wife, Dr. Susan Fisher Hawk. Together they battle viruses that cause terrible disease. The couple treats patients and looks for cures. Two doctors come from very different backgrounds. Susan grew up in England. At first, she had wanted to be an actress, but then she fell in love with science. Joseph grew up in Tennessee. He became a volunteer teacher in Jair. Seeing the disease and suffering there made him decide to study medicine too. An outbreak of a strange illness anywhere in the world puts the pair of doctors on the next plane. They have traveled from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia to China. One long-term project took them to Sierra Leone and on and off for 15 years. There they fought a deadly disease called the Lassa fever. Lassa fever kills thousands of people each year in West Africa. Invisible killers. Viruses are tiny creatures, much smaller than the eye can see. They are parasites that attack plants and animals. They cannot live without a host to feed upon. The host could be a flower or a dog, or it could be you. When a virus gets into a person, it invades the cell. There it can copy itself into an army of millions. The virus then spreads throughout the body, attacking healthy cells. Some viruses cause common illness, like the flu. Others are deadly, like the hive. That's the virus that causes AIDS. In the field, Joseph and Susan take blood samples from patients. They study and identify the virus. Then they create a plan to try to battle the disease. Often they do studies to try to develop vaccines. These medicines can keep healthy people from getting the disease. People need vaccines because viruses cannot be cured. Joseph and Susan also teach healthcare workers how to keep the virus from spreading. They show hospital workers how to throw away infected objects, like used needles. Sometimes they even recommend the quarantine. That's when no one in an infected area is allowed to leave. One sick person could spread a virus to another town or even another country. And if a virus spreads too far, it can become almost unstoppable. They're always racing to keep one step ahead of these viruses, Susan said. But they're usually one step ahead of us. Like detectives, we piece together clues to find where the virus is hiding. Joseph adds, if we catch them, maybe we can learn enough to wipe them out. But sometimes their work gets interrupted. Joseph and Susan's project in Sierra Leone closed down in 1991 when the country had a bloody civil war. Still, on one of their last visits, they had an experience that made all the dangerous work seem worthwhile. As the truck bounced along dirt roads, Susan saw villagers wanting to meet them. Joseph hit the brakes. Soon the truck was surrounded by dozens of people. Some of them were the patients who had been so sick. They wanted to thank Joseph and Susan for saving their lives. Now and then we have victories, Joseph says. In many of these countries, the people are poor and the hospitals are bad. When someone gets sick, the odds are against him. It's amazing to see them healthy again. Chapter 5. Wow, we got two more. The Jungle Drugstore. In Eloy Rodriguez hunts for new medicine. Wild animals show him the way. Eloy Rodriguez Rodriguez works in the impenetrable forest of Uganda. It's called impenetrable because it's nearly impossible to walk through. To get to work, Eloy hacks through thick elephant grass. Sometimes he tiptoes around deadly black scorpions and tarantula. If a flying beetle hits him in the head, he could be knocked out. These beetles are as hard as rocks. Eloy also avoids the poison spikes that stick out from some trees. Eloy is a biologist at Cornell University. He studies plants and animals. Now he's on a jungle mission looking for cures for what? You name it. You name it, malaria, AIDS, the common cold. He watches how animals use plants to treat their illnesses. Then he sees if those plants can also help people. Sometimes Eloy studies how gorillas use plants. He might find some gorillas in a clearing in the jungle. Usually they are lying on rocks or leaning against trees. A gorilla leader is called a silverback male. They can weigh up to 500 pounds. Eloy knows the gorillas are peaceful creatures most of the time. Eloy tries to keep his distance from the gorilla. He doesn't want to disturb them. He's watching to see what sick gorillas do. Once he saw some hobble to a bush. They picked out the prickly leaves. Then they shoved the leaves in their mouth, spines and all. A few hours later, they seemed to be feeling better. Just follow the animal, Eloy said. They'll lead you to the next scientific breakthrough. He calls it Pharmacognosy. Pharmacognosy. We owe every drug we have to nature, he says. Rocky road to science. Eloy worked hard to become a scientist. He grew up in a poor Mexican American town in Texas. His father took whatever jobs he could find, from peach picker to short order cook. His mother cleaned the teachers' houses. She was like a spy in a different culture. She saw the books they read and she passed them on to me. Eloy graduated at the top of his class. Still, his counselor told him to skip college and become a car mechanic. I didn't know the first thing about cars, Eloy recalled. But Eloy had bigger dreams. His large family valued education. Of his 67 cousins, 64 graduated from college. Wow, we were poor, but we weren't stupid, he said. And the school's attitude was not very respectful. In his work, Eloy has learned to respect the ways of animals and humans. In Venezuela, he once tagged along with an Indian tribe called the Piaroa. As they hunted, Piaroa showed Eloy a leafy plant. They told him it eased the pain of wasp stings. Now scientists are turning that leaf into an important new painkiller. In Peru, a monkey led Eloy to a flower. Now the flower may become a new cancer treatment. Eloy usually blends right in when he does his research, but he knows when he is not wanted. He spent weeks tracking a band of gorillas in Uganda. Then one day, they decided they were tired of Eloy. They charged right at me. When you get dumped by a 500-pound silverback, you know it's time to gather your plants and go back to the lab. Chapter 6, Mummy Finder. Johann Reinhard will go anywhere to dig up secrets of the past. She's called Juanita, but nobody knows her real name. She's been dead for more than 500 years. Juanita was a young Inca girl. She lived in the South American Empire that stretched from Colombia to Chile. Here's what experts think happened to her. One day, around 1470, she was led to the top of a mountain, Ampato. The 20,000-foot mountain rises over southern Peru. There she was killed by a blow to the head. Juanita was a human sacrifice. It sounds horrible, but it was probably a great honor in her time. Families offered the teenage girls to the gods. It was believed that such sacrifices protected the people from disaster. Juanita's body might have stayed on that mountain forever. That's if Johann Richard hadn't come along. He's one of the world's top archaeologist. He learns about ancient people by studying the things they left behind. Every time you find something, whether it's clothes or a statue or a Juanita, it's like looking into a window to the past, says Johann. He works as an explorer with the National Geographic Society. But mummies are his passion. Many kinds of mummies. But way you might think, aren't mummies those Egyptian bodies that look like they are wrapped in bandages from head to toe? Actually, a mummy is any dead body that's been preserved for a long time. Juanita was preserved by the cold mountain air. Then centuries. Then centuries of snow and ice buried her. But Mount Ampato is near the volcano. Over time, the gray ash from the volcano melted the ice around Juanita. That's when Johann found her. Johann has a knack for finding buried stuff. When he was a child, he dug holes in his Illinois backyard looking for arrowheads and fossils. Okay, and in his attic, he found dust-covered Hardy Boys books. Those are mysteries that start two teenage brothers. Flipping through their yellow pages, he fell in love with mystery and adventure. Mystery and adventure are what Johann loves about archaeology. One project took him into underwater caves in the Mediterranean Sea. That's where he uncovered ancient Roman works of art. Johann has also lived with camel herder in the great Indian desert, and he's hung out with fishermen on the Maldives Islands in the Indian Ocean. Johann will search anywhere to dig up clues to the past. Johann wasn't looking for mummies when he climbed Mount Empato. He was actually there to take pictures of the neighboring volcano. But as he got near the peak, he saw red feathers sticking out of the ground. He recognized them. They were part of the Incan headdress. As he got closer, Johann saw a large bundle. At first, he thought it was a backpack. Then his heart began to race. That was no backpack. It was a person. Juanita's face was frozen in what Johann called a peaceful expression. She was wearing a fancy chocolate-colored gown with red and white stripes. Her long black hair was frozen as if it was still waving in the mountain wind. Johann knew the importance of his discovery. No well-preserved Incan mummies had ever been found before, but how could he get a 90-pound dead girl down a 20,000-foot mountain? He couldn't leave her up there. She might be attacked by birds, or she might be raided by treasure-seeking looters. Johann wrapped Juanita in a sleeping bag. He strapped her to his back and carefully climbed down the icy mountain path. Then he tied her to a mule and went into town. She finally made it to Johann's lap. In the baggage heard a bug buzz. How did Johann figure out what happened to Juanita? Near her body, he found items left as presents or offerings to the gods. Later, X-rays showed that Juanita's skull had been crushed. She was killed by a blow above her right eyes. These clues matched all the stories about Incan child sacrifices. A Spanish priest had witnessed these events in the 1600s and written about them. Today, Juanita is a celebrity. When she's not at home at a university in Peru, she's on a world tour. Like a rock star, she has visited the US and Japan. In a way, I guess she will live forever, Johann says, but we'll never know who she really was. Some of the past always remains a mystery. The end.